What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 74 of the Hoop Venue podcast. My name is Tyler, and as always, I'm joined by my great friend Sean. I've unlocked a new background. There's no more random wardrobe. I remember actually, I had a few YouTube comments that thought my background was fake, that I was using a green screen. No, that was a real dresser, but it was real boring, so I had to spice up the background, especially ahead of today's episode, where we're going to be talking about all things NBA trade deadline. As things currently stand, the deadline is basically exactly 2 days away. 17 minutes from now, it'll be a 48-hour difference. So, Sean, what is your initial reaction? And we don't have to get into the specifics of any trades yet, but what is your actually, before I ask you that, I have a bone to pick. Kawhi Leonard wasn't an all-star, and we had this whole rant about, like, Kawhi Leonard, about the Inside the NBA guys. None of the Inside the NBA guys had Kawhi as an all-star. And we were like, well, this is outlandish. He was both of our first guy. He was our first guy off the bench for the West, and he's been playing at an MVP level for 80% of the season. He's only missed, I think at the time it was like 15 games. And all I have to say is just like Kawhi Leonard playing at an MVP level and not making the All-Star game is one of the single least justifiable choices I've ever seen for any award in sports. The only angle I could somewhat understand is if they intentionally like wanted to punish him for the tree planting stuff that went on in the offseason. That's the only thing I could really think of. But to my point about abolishing conferences, which we got into last episode, in what world is a guy like Norman Powell an all-star and Kawhi Leonard isn't? Like, not to take anything away from Norman Powell, but if it's not an East and West game, what are we doing, man? What are we doing? Okay, I had to get that off my chest. It's been sizzling in there. What is your initial reaction to the trade deadline, and where's your head at?
Well, we actually have some trades to talk about now, which is the fun part, and not just speculation and well, this team might do this and whatever. And it seems like teams are kind of lining themselves up we're kind of seeing two paths, it feels like right now. Or three, technically. The teams that are still trying to like make a push for this season, just retooling around the margins. B, trying to, line themselves up to be a Giannis trade destination spot. Or the third one being seeing this summer as knowing that they were going to have cap space entering this summer and not really loving the market. So instead, kind of filling that cap space, if you will, now at the deadline by making a bigger move right now for a good player. We're kind of seeing one of those three paths kind of shape out for some different teams. And yeah, I'm excited to break down some of the trades we have, some of the speculation. We got some really bizarre news last night as the Clippers are playing like a top 5 team in the West right now, or at least over the past 25 games or so. We get some bizarre news from the Clippers side of things. We get a major trade today that happens out of Memphis. There's a lot of stuff to touch on. So yeah, exciting time of year. And trade deadline is, especially like the last 2 to 3 days of it, pretty easily like top free agency at this point.
Yeah, 100%. And it's crazy because going into this episode, when I came up with the idea in my head of like, okay, we're going to talk about all the trade deadline stuff happening. Going into this episode, I was thinking we're going to be talking about a lot of speculation, right? We're going to be talking about the James Harden stuff, maybe some LeBron stuff, the Giannis stuff. And then like 30 minutes before I got into my computer, Jaren Jackson Jr. was traded. And then that's followed by another multi-team deal. We already got the Cavs and Kings deal. We got the Vit Krejci deal. So there's a lot to talk about in terms of trades that have already happened. Where do you want to start?
Let's start off with the Jazz trade. The Jazz trade with the Memphis Grizzlies. Do you have the details already pulled up in front of you?
I do. So to Utah, you've got Jaren Jackson Jr., John Conchar, Jock Landale, and Vince Williams Jr. And then for Memphis, you've got Walter Clayton Jr., Kyle Anderson, Taylor Hendricks, George Niang, and 3 first-round picks. Do you want to start on the Grizzlies side or the Jazz side with this?
Let's break this down from Memphis side of things.
Yeah, for sure. So for Memphis, I think this is a clear step towards a complete rebuild, right? You've got the report came out from Shams that Memphis now owns 13 first-round picks over the next 7 years. which is tied for the most in the league with Brooklyn and OKC. So you've got a rebuilding team and then the best team in basketball, standard stuff going on there. But Walter Clayton Jr., super interesting young prospect at the guard position, elite shooter, shown some real playmaking and ball handling chops. Memphis can really do a lot with him moving forward. You bring in Taylor Hendricks, who we've talked about as kind of a favorite on the show, his defensive versatility when he's on the court and healthy. And then 3 first-round picks. And I honestly view this as a huge win for Memphis because you also have to account for what went on in the offseason with the Desmond Bane trade. You have gotten an elite return on both Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. at this point. So even though that era of Grizzlies basketball didn't pan out in the way you expected with the young core, the excitement, and potential for contention, the way you got out at the right time, you didn't hold on to assets for too long, and you didn't settle for a bad deal. So on Memphis' side, you've got just a stash of young players now. You've got a stash of draft picks. And I think the only question moving forward is, what does this mean for Ja Morant's future over the next couple days and then going into the summer?
I think if you're Memphis, you have to kind of be done with the Ja era, right? Or
you got to, right?
You got to. There's already reports and rumors coming out that the Grizzlies now view Cedric Howard and Zach Edey as the franchise cornerstones.
I'm not mad at that. I don't know if either have shown superstar potential, but Cedric Howard is a rare breed of do-it-all rookie. Like, rookies usually don't come into the league as versatile and complete as he's been. And then Zach Edey, we've talked about, literally looked like, I mean, I don't know if he only played 11 games this year, but during those 11 games was like an all-NBA impact player for the Grizzlies on both sides of the ball. So I think I'm not mad at that. And I do think there's a lot of interesting potential with like Walter Clayton Jr. at the 1. Ty Jerome's still on the team, and he's not too old. He can fit the timeline, and he can help unlock a guy like Edey in the pick and roll. So I'm not mad at that. But, yeah, it does still feel like you need that superstar if you're Memphis.
Yeah, and I think Ja just not panning out. I wonder what the return is going to be for Ja in a potential trade, whether it's at the deadline or in the summer. I think, like you said, it was the right time. You were very, very clearly just going to be mediocre in the current Western Conference. And mediocre is potentially like the best case scenario. Right now, the Grizzlies are listed at 19 and 29. They're 3 games back of the 10-seeded play-in spot in the Western Conference. And I do think the one thing that kind of bothers you if you're Memphis is that Ja did very clearly decline over the past 2 or 3 seasons. And that just changes the outlook of like where this team had to go direction-wise and why they had to pivot kind of quickly. Honestly, like if you go back to 2023 where they lost to the Lakers in the first round, okay, Ja gets hurt and then suspended. I believe that's the timeline. But basically, they only had like an extra year or so maybe of like the full core of Ja, Bane, and Jaren. And then they pivoted super, super fast. But I think it's really because it was just clear and obvious. And good on Memphis for not dragging this out. But pretty obvious that in the current Western Conference that they needed to pivot, they needed to redirect, and just start a clear rebuild and try to build this thing back from the ground up.
So, what do you think would be a decent destination for Ja Morant at this point? Like, return aside, where do you see his skill set fitting in from a basketball standpoint?
I just got crazy deja vu. That's besides the point. I don't really. That's the thing. There hasn't been a spot that I've truly loved for Ja.
Ja's a really weird player at this point because the jump shot is clearly just like debilitating to his game. Like he just cannot shoot the ball at all. This season, he's taking 10 mid-range shots a game and making 39% of them. Over the last 3 seasons, he's been a 29% pull-up three-point shooter, 30.5% on wide-open threes. So the shooting is just a serious problem, and any lineup you put him in just has to have elite shooting across the board, and you have to put the ball in his hands a lot because of the fact that he's not going to be a spacer for you and isn't going to drive a ton of value away from the ball in a bunch of different ways. So it's really interesting to think about because he does still have that superpower, right? Like he still is a walking 2 feet in the paint, even if he isn't quite as prolific as he was a few years ago. He's still one of the best creators and passers on the planet. He's going to just collapse the defense and make all the right reads, create dunks and corner threes for his teammates. So it has to be a team that can put the ball in his hands a lot. and then also has the shooting to supplement his downhill play style. You obviously want some defense as well because he's got those limitations. And so it's weird because we were talking about potential Trae Young destinations, and then it's a team like the Wizards that's like, we can just like afford to give him his touches. So do you think it's a team like that, like a full-on rebuild? Like, is it Sacramento, maybe? Or is it a team that's already in like the playoff picture and it's like, we can upgrade our spot at the 1? I don't know.
I think Sacramento probably makes the most sense. Because, okay, I think of true rebuilding teams. Brooklyn has too many young guards that they want to invest in, you would imagine, long term. Specifically, Igor Demon or Demon, whichever one, the way he prefers his.
Yeoman.
Yeoman. Ah, that's right. That's right.
There you go. Yeah, it's a little freaky. I struggled with that one when I was doing my Brooklyn Nets preview on the season. I was like, Yegor Yeoman. Like, my initial instinct was Igor Demon. And I was like, that's kind of a tough name.
I think I just watched Kevin Young, BYU's coach, where Igor Yeoman. Wait, what?
Yeoman.
Where he went to school at last year. And Kevin Young was like, yeah, I've been calling him Igor Demon or Demon for the past, like, the entire year, and he never corrected me. Now he gets to the league, it's Yeoman. Like, all right, bro. Cool story. Miami's obviously got talked about a lot. I just think it's funny as hell and ironic that there would be any interest on either side, to be completely honest, for Ja to go to the place that's running the exact same system that he so vigorously hated last year, with how they don't run spread pick and roll, how it's kind of a random free-flowing drive and kick kind of offense. So, yeah, Sacramento's kind of in the one spot right now. I'm like, yeah, we'll just give you your touches. We're going to be really, really bad almost regardless. Go hoop and repair some of your value, Ja. And then we'll try this again in the offseason. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of the points you made I would definitely agree with. On the side of the Nets, I do think it's interesting because Yegor Yeoman has developed, like, instantly into this volume, super great three-point shooter, which was, like, one of the swing skills for him. It was coming into the league, the idea was that he couldn't shoot. And then he's, like, shooting 6 or 7 threes a game on, like, a 40% clip. It's something crazy. Like, he's a really, really good shooter from day one, but has basically no juice as a two-point scorer at all. So that's the one angle I could be like, okay, Ja and Yeoman actually make sense as a backcourt pairing because you get that shooting, you get the 2-point scoring from Ja to cover up for Yegor Yeoman's shortcomings. Then you also have Michael Porter Jr. and this creative offensive system that's still going to run a lot of ball screens and off-ball stuff. So that aspect, I could see the Nets going for Ja Morant. The other team that's really interesting to me is if the Clippers move Harden, I could potentially see Ja Morant filling that point guard spot. Not the best fit in the world, in my opinion, because that is still a roster that like doesn't have a ton of volume three-point shooting and is more defensive inclined in certain areas, but I wouldn't think that'd be a terrible fit. Like Ja Morant just basically filling in for Harden in that rotation, and then you've got your starting lineup is what? Ja Morant, whatever two you want. They started a lot of different twos, and then Kawhi, John Collins, and Zubats. I think that'd be a pretty interesting lineup. You have any thoughts on that?
I don't. The fit's just really, really weird. The one thing is, though, and we talked about this a little bit in the past, is how Kawhi is just such a high volume 3-point shooter now.
Yeah.
That it's, I don't know, it almost wouldn't matter potentially. That's probably the one contender looking at the West that makes the most sense, to me at least. Or I'm saying contender loosely. The Clippers are still the 9 seed in the Western Conference. I saw somebody throw out the Raptors on Twitter. I really don't like the Raptors fit, and that's just me at least. Especially like replacing him for quickly. Like, all right, we're just completely sold on no spacing and no outside perimeter shooting threat. Yeah. So I mean, I guess the Clippers could potentially work out of the contenders. Really, really quickly. This is per Anthony Slater of ESPN. The Warriors have placed Draymond Green in trade talks, and his 14-year run with the team is in jeopardy.
Ooh, interesting. Did you see the Draymond? I don't know if this was a legit report. I was just scrolling Twitter and stumbled across it the other day. Did you see that? And again, this could be completely fake. I could be making this up, but I saw a tweet that said Draymond Green reportedly was like interested in making himself available for the Warriors to trade because of the contract, and then just coming back in the offseason.
Huh.
Is that allowed?
I did not see that.
So I don't even know. I don't know if that's real, and I also don't know if that's allowed. But it was like if Draymond could just leave and come back, then you can keep Jimmy and trade Draymond to make contracts work, and then you can get like hypothetically you could have Curry, Jimmy, Draymond, Giannis next year. I think was the angle they were going for with that tweet. Again, could be just something that never even happened on Draymond's part. It was just something I stumbled across. Okay, let's talk about the Jazz. The Jazz, the Jazz side of things. You bring in Jaren Jackson Jr., John Conchar, Jock Landale, and Vince Williams Jr. Obviously, the big star here is Jaren Jackson Jr. I have two big takeaways regarding the Jaren stuff. I think on one end, we've talked about Jaren's limitations, especially last year when we did our top 10 defenders series from each position. We talked about a lot of the defensive limitations with Jaren Jackson Jr., right? The fact that he can't really be your traditional five, not only because he's not the greatest like drop defender, big pick and roll rim deterrent. He's more of a weak side roaming over shot blocker. Also because of the rebounding weaknesses. How do you cover those two things? You put him in giant freaking lineups where he never has to be the five, and you put him next to one of the best rebounders on the planet in Walker Kessler. So instantly, my mind goes to Jaren Jackson Jr. and Walker Kessler might be the best defensive duo in the league. And I don't really know like who else would be in contention, right? Like Jaren as your roamer, as your free safety, as someone who can guard the 3 through 5 pretty effectively man to man. Kessler as your elite drop big anchor, rim protector, rebounder, and all that good stuff. Over the last 2 seasons, players have shot 12% worse than their expected field goal percentage at the rim with Jaren Jackson contesting. So just this massive rim presence when he is there. But then also with Jaren, the interesting thing is the leaps he's taken on offense to the point where now he's like kind of a legit scorer and creator, isolation mismatch option while also being a spacer. So there's so many different creative ways to use this front court on offense where we've seen them use Walker Kessler as a spacer in a bunch of unique spots or use him as like someone that's going to dive to the rim and crash the offensive glass. He gets like 5 offensive rebounds a game. Lauri Markkanen, of course, is one of the most dynamic off-ball weapons in the league as a legit 7-footer. Then you get Jaren as this isolation presence. The leap Keontae George has taken. Ace Bailey's still there. He's only a rookie. Isaiah Collier is one of the best passers in the league already. There's so many interesting things going on with Utah. What are your thoughts on the fit with Jaren Jackson Jr. specifically?
So I think the fit with Jaren, and this was my initial reaction, and then it almost immediately got confirmed that Utah's direction and Utah's plan, at least heading into next season, this one does not rule out their interest in re-signing and extending Walker Kessler this summer. So with that being said, their plan going forward is to definitely build around the 3-headed jumbo front court of Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Walker Kessler. The one thing that do immediately come to mind, especially if we're going to pay Walker Kessler basically like average starting center money to even above average starting center money, I think Zubac is getting 20. So let's just go there. You're committing so much money to your front court that's almost rare, honestly, how much money they're going to be committing to their front court. Like Lowry and Jaren are both over $45 million. They're both max caliber players, or at least they're getting max level salaries. And then you're paying Kessler, and rightfully so, legitimate starting center money, which is anywhere from $25 million if you're not an all-star plus level player. You're talking northwards of like $110 million you're committing to your front court. Now, granted, I think there's a lot of positional versatility there. The lineup configurations you can go with you could go 3 guards and Jaren and Kessler. You could go you still have Kessler and Lowry. If you really, really, really wanted to go Jaren at the 5 for small ball minutes, you could go Jaren, Lowry, and 3 guards. Like you just have a lot of lineups that you could play with. the shooting with Jaren and Lowry obviously is a plus. Again, like you brought up, one of the biggest weaknesses, the rebounding ability, but Lowry's a good enough rebounder, and then Walker Kessler is one of the best defensive rebounding bigs on the planet. Obviously, Walker Kessler is not necessarily a floor spacer, but between Jaren and Lowry, also with Will Hardy's pretty innovative offensive schemes, that's not going to be a worry. The decision making from their front court would be a question mark for sure. But
Yeah.
I mean, do you talk yourself into, if you're Utah, like, hey, Keontae George is taking a legit leap this season and is playing at a fringe all-star caliber level? It's definitely offensively. He's definitely played at an all-star caliber level offensively this season. And what if Utah just wins the lottery, the one this year, or gets a top 3 pick, and they can add to this group? And the tweet that I made on Twitter, I was half joking, but pretty serious, was that now Will Hardy has actual talent to coach, or actual real NBA players to coach, and Keontae, Isaiah Collier, Lowry, Jaren, Walker Kessler, Ace Bailey, who's kind of started to figure it out, especially over these last couple of weeks, Kyle Filipowski, Bryce Zenzimbach, who's also a pretty good NBA player. And then you add in a potential top 5 pick on top of that. If they were able, I think their pick is currently top 8 protected. So obviously you want to be bad enough to where that pick doesn't convey to OKC. But like Utah, I would hope that they don't go like all gas to the brakes for this season. Or put their foot all the way on the gas pedal. I always make awful car gas pedal analogies. But I really hope that they don't fully all right, hey, let's go try to win games. Quite yet. I know Walker Kessler is still hurt. And it's a Walker Kessler out for the year.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Because I think the one thing that I still kind of have a drawback on is they kind of went away from the Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert era because they felt like it was a cap on that era. And without them getting a potential top 5 pick, it would also feel like you're kind of going to eventually run into this ceiling. And I don't think that ceiling is a championship, but it's still a good enough team to make some noise in the Western Conference next year.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's super fascinating to see what Utah is doing right now because they're going for a roster construction that's never been done before. I always really like when we see teams try things that are different. Like this lineup they're going for is something we've never seen throughout NBA history. They're going for the angle of they're probably not really going to have any point of attack defenders on the court. Maybe that 2 spot will be a point of attack defender. But they're like, we're going to overwhelm teams with our size and rim protection that to the point where we don't actually need a point of attack defender and we're just going to shell up. And it's going to be kind of like a Denver Nuggets type of playoff defense, I'd imagine, where you're just zoning up that space and they have so much size and length that there's no clean driving lanes. That's the angle I'd imagine they're going for. But like you said, the weird part of it is they have maybe the best rim protecting front court in the league, but also easily the weakest passing and ball handling front court in the league. Like nobody on that front court you're comfortable actually creating your offense consistently and getting everyone involved. So it makes things really weird where like I wonder how we'd be talking about this Utah team if it was like Luka Doncic at the 1. And it's like, all we need you guys to do is finish plays and attack mismatches and do this off-ball stuff. And we have this one guy who's going to handle the ball all game and make all those tough reads for you. As opposed to Keontae George, who is a good playmaker, but he's still a score-first guard who's looking to get to his own shot, and then the passing is more secondary out of that. So I do think it'll be interesting to see what they do with that 2 spot. Will it be Sensabaugh, Collier, Ace Bailey, Zvi Mikhailuk? Who's going to start at the 2 there? And then also what that looks like on offense and defense against a high-level team. Like, how are they going to be able to create advantages against OKC without the high-level passing to put them in rotation? Or how are they going to defend a team like the Lakers when they don't have that point-of-attack screen navigation presence? It'll be interesting to see, but I'm glad they're trying something different. I don't think that the return was too high. And also, it's not just Jaren Jackson Jr. Like, I think John Conchar, Jock Landale, and Vince Williams are all, like, playable rotation players. So, I do think this trade, as it stands right now, to me, seems like a win-win. Is that where your head's at as well?
Yeah, I think for different reasons. I think Utah gets to breathe some life into the roster. It's still a talented player and has a really unique fit that I'm excited to see as early as next season. And Memphis, clear direction. I think we're still approaching a Ja Morant trade. Shams obviously reported that the Grizzlies are still working towards a potential Ja deal. And now a Heat reporter is saying that to expect the Heat to be a player in at least facilitating either the Giannis or Ja Morant trade. So it'll be fun to see one of those trades happen while we're recording.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I don't think we've ever gotten a live reaction on the show, have we? To anything
I don't
big?
Think so.
I don't think so. I mean, you just what you announced. What was that last you actually just broke the news of the Draymond Green potentially being traded. That's the biggest reveal we've ever had on the show, I think. If I were to grade these two teams in this trade, it'd be more like the Jazz are like a slight winner, like a B- type of thing. But I think Memphis is just a huge winner. You get off of Jaren Jackson Jr. early, you get a ton of assets. I think this is more like an A- type of deal for them. What team or trade do you want to talk about next?
Let's talk about the fact that the Clippers have won 18 of their past 22 games or something like that, and James Harden wants to trade, which I'm joking in the way I phrase that. It's very clearly James Harden, it's already kind of been reported. James Harden wanted an extension for 2 years up to $80 million guaranteed, and the Clippers were like, no, we're good. And so James Harden's natural response to that was, okay, I'm good on y'all. Let's see if we can make a trade happen. And I think it was last night, Jake Fisher, or I think Shams actually was the first one to report that Harden wanted out. But then pretty soon after that, all the reports came out about how the Clippers and the Cavs were a likely trade partner for Harden and a Harden for Garland swap, which actually I think salary-wise works really, really cleanly. They could pretty much just get that done and, add whatever compensation. I don't necessarily think they need extra players to make that deal work. But I don't know. I'm kind of weirded out by this, Tyler. What's your thoughts on the Harden thing in general and a potential Harden for Garland swap?
I was also weirded out at first, and I was thinking about it a little bit further with more of the reports that were coming out. The Harden stuff is really interesting to me because I do wonder. It's been clear now that Harden wants to get paid. That's his number one goal, right? He wants these longer term contracts, and he keeps proving that he's worth it, right? His play speaks for itself. We both had him as an all-star this season, I believe, or maybe you didn't have him. I know I had him as an all-star this season. You might have had him as one of your first one or two cuts, but the offensive load he's been carrying, the playmaking, the shot creation, the shooting, it's all dialed up, and he's just still playing at an all-star or close to an all-NBA level. So it's interesting that he continues to prove that he's worth this money, but teams don't want to invest in him, right? That's what happened with Philly, and then Harden goes to China and has the craziest trade request ever, where he tells a bunch of kids in China that he will never play for an organization that Daryl Morey's a part of again. And I'm not even faulting Harden. I get it. You want the stability, the long-term investment. You want it to feel like the organization's betting on you and investing in you, and you're not just marking time with them. So I get it from that angle. But I do wonder what things would look like if the Clippers were in an actual championship contention spot. What if right now the Clippers were the 2 seed and they were 33-15? Would Harden still be wanting out, or would he be seeing the season out? Because I do wonder where his priorities are in terms of, obviously he still wants a championship and he wants to play for a contender, but he also wants the long-term money investment. And I wonder if that's a 50-50 split, a 60-40 split. You know what I mean? It almost feels like with the Clippers, he felt like he was getting neither of those things. So it's just easier to ask out and be like, look, I'm going to go to the Cavs or the Timberwolves. I think were the two teams I've seen floated out. I don't know if Harden actually expressed interest in those two teams or if they're just the two that were trying to trade for him. But those are the two that I've heard talked about the most. So from that angle, I think that's what's really interesting on the James Harden side. On the other side of it, I kind of love the Cavs thing. I wasn't too sure at first. I was I didn't expect the Cavs to really be active at the deadline until, of course, they made. And you can't talk about the James Harden stuff without bringing up the first trade they made, which was they brought in Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis for DeAndre Hunter. And to me, Dennis Schroeder is your guard insurance, your backup guard, and then your starting guard probably when Garland's out. And that is because that starts with the fact that, and it hurts my heart to say this because he's one of my favorite players in the league and I love his play style. The Lonzo Ball pickup was just a complete disaster. He just forgot how to score and shoot the ball entirely. He's shooting like 28% from three. I saw a tweet the other day that it was Lonzo Ball is 460th in the league in 3-point percentage, and there can only be 450 eligible NBA players in the league at one time, which means he's shooting worse than the amount of players in the league. So that's obviously just a red flag, and I thought he'd be a perfect fit. Like, if he was shooting normal, he'd be an amazing fit for what the Cavs are trying to do. So I think they bring in Dennis Schroeder as the insurance for that. You also get Keon Ellis, who's got his flaws, but at the very least going to give you volume 3-point shooting and can match up with most guards, really good screen navigator and defensive playmaker. You can definitely get him into spot playoff minutes for sure. So you shore up your depth a little bit. And the problem with the Cavs is we've seen this for years now. Last year, they were a complete juggernaut all season long, right? Garland played at an All-NBA level. He was close to 50, 40, 90. He was close to clutch player of the year. It's clear how important he is to making the Cavs offense function with his pick and roll ball handling, with his quick decision making, his passing, and his shooting, and what that looks like when he's not on the court. And the problem for the Cavs, for basically the entire Donovan Mitchell era, has been Garland has not fielded a single healthy playoff run, right? When Garland's in the lineup, they blitz teams. They're an amazing offense. They function at the highest level. Everything works. And when he's not in the lineup, everything kind of starts to collapse, and that's what we've seen in the playoffs every year. So what I'm thinking from just the perspective of the Cavs is, with James Harden, you get a lot of the skills from Garland that makes the Cavs offense function at such a high level with the pick and roll ball handling, the shooting, the passing, the decision making. I will say the big difference is that Garland's an elite off-ball player, and I would say he's probably a better shooter than Harden. Definitely a more like diverse shooting profile. So from that angle, you are a little bit more rigid in your offensive versatility with Harden. You have to play more of a certain style with him on the court, but he replaces at least 90% of the skills that made the Cavs offense what they were with Garland on the court. And then also, you start to shore up some of the other issues, like the fact that Garland and Mitchell were the smallest backcourt in the league, and Harden's big. I don't think people realize how big Harden is. He's 6'5". I think he's got a 6'11" wingspan. He can switch pretty much across the board. He can rebound. He can make plays defensively with his hands. So you get like a little bit of that back on defense. You get bigger, more switchable, which should help in the playoffs. But the bigger thing is that Harden's an Iron Man. He doesn't get hurt anymore. He had like that one hamstring injury that kind of nagged for a little bit, but besides that, he's just gonna churn out 80 games, and gonna be healthy in the playoffs. Gonna give you a full series. So, I think what the Cavs are thinking is from the perspective of Garland's never gonna get to that full strength in the playoffs. We're never gonna be able to make it through 4 rounds with Garland. But if we can get a lot of that back and shore up our depth, we can get back to being the best team in the Eastern Conference. Is kind of where I think their head's at organizationally. And if that's the case, I kind of love it.
The other thing that I do kind of understand from the Clippers side of things is that you get off the long-term money of Darius Garland. Darius Garland is under contract through 2028. So yeah, it's this year, then 2 more seasons under contract where James Harden, there's a potential out at the end of this summer. At the end of the season. So I do understand that as well, and kind of saving themselves some money in the luxury tax bills for the years following this season. There's also been some rumors about them trying to get off Jared Allen's contract as well. They have Jared Allen locked up for the next 3 seasons after this one, so through 2029. But for the Clippers, I don't really understand. Okay, so like for that reason, I've kind of like bought into some of the stuff for the Cavs, the long-term savings, them being a little worried about Donovan Mitchell wanting to re-up long-term as well, and feel like they need some change to the roster. Donovan Mitchell is extension eligible at the end of next summer, where he's going to be going into his player option for $53.8 million. The one thing I don't understand for the Clippers is, well, the reasons why they are reportedly not willing to commit to Harden for 2+ years is because they're also trying to do this BS salary cap gimmick for 2027. And well, Darius Garland's, you're going to be paying him $42+ million in 2027, or $44 million going into the summer of 2027. So, okay, I could understand getting off of Harden if you know you're not going to pay him and extend him, and your plan is to kind of pivot from this core by that summer. But okay, why am I going to get Darius Garland? And yeah, really, that's my biggest question. Why am I going to go get Darius Garland then? Outside of the fact, and that's just purely financial, Darius Garland is about a decade younger, so I do get that, and you can hypothetically build with Darius Garland as one of your building blocks going forward. But to your point, Tyler, like Darius Garland just has to stay healthy, and he has unfortunately, shown the inability to stay healthy this season. The Cavs, I want to say the record is 31-20. I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
Darius Garland has played in 26 of the available.
So it's
what's that?
50% of games.
Yeah, he's played in half the games this season. He was healthy. He played 75 of the 82 games last season, but obviously the playoff injury and how that derailed the Cavs season. Played in 57 games at 23-24. And when he came back in the postseason that year, very clearly just a shell of himself as a player. 2023 played 69 games. He actually had a pretty solid postseason run that year against the Knicks. In round one. And rookie year, 59 games. Second year, 54 games. Like, Darius Garland only played over 70 games once, and that was last season, and obviously got hurt in the playoffs. When he's healthy, very clearly an all-NBA caliber guard, and has all-NBA caliber impact on the offense because of, again, this quick decision-making, his shooting, his pick-and-roll play, his quick decision-making. The fact that he's fairly low turnover. He's not this turnover-prone guard. He's going to average about 2 turnovers a game. So he very clearly has this all-NBA impact on the offense, but the fact he's going to get picked at defensively, especially in a playoff setting because of his size and his limited, physical attributes, on top of the fact that he is just injury-prone at this point, unfortunately, even though he's only 26. It's always like nagging little injuries, too, outside of the foot injury that very clearly needed surgery and bothered both him and Austin Reeves. And we saw Austin try to play through it and very clearly wasn't himself trying to play through that. I do have my question marks for both sides, but I think there's some saving graces as well, I think, for both teams.
Yeah, back on the Cavs side, I think Harden's best attribute is his passing and the way he unlocks bigs. So I'm already thinking, with the way they love to run 3-man action, Harden, Mobley, and Allen is just an offensive masterpiece in terms of the types of action you can run and the way Harden's going to unlock those guys as scoring threats. Jared Allen actually is coming off of a 40-point game, career high. Shout out Jared Allen. A lot of people have been questioning the Harden and Mitchell fit, and I just don't see that as a problem at all for 2 reasons. One, I think we've seen, and maybe Luka and Kyrie is an extreme example, but we've seen that if you put 2 elite shooters on the wings, they're not going to struggle to fit with each other, right? The fact that anytime Harden has the ball, Mitchell's a threat to catch and shoot, and then anytime Mitchell has the ball, Harden's a threat to catch and shoot, is just automatically going to unlock so much space and so much offensive variety. But the other aspect of it is that Mitchell is an elite second side attacker. So when you put Harden in those pick and roll actions, or you put him in handoff stuff, or you're running an isolation against the mismatch, Mitchell is a guy who's just as dangerous with the ball as he is without the ball in those spots on the perimeter. And if Harden starts to draw that added attention, maybe an extra help at the nail or a dig or a double or whatever, Mitchell's the guy that can then catch and go. And for that same reason, I also think the fit between Harden and Anthony Edwards would be elite. And that's another team, like I said, that's been floated around in the Harden talks. I don't really think we have to go into the specifics on why that's a good fit. I mean, you've got an elite playmaker and ball handler in Harden. You've got Ant, who's playing at a near MVP level. Then you still have Jaden McDaniels on the wing, who's taken a leap. Rudy Gobert, obviously, is your pick and roll heavy big. With James Harden, I would assume you have to trade Julius Randle in that situation. But on the Timberwolves side, we were a little bit confused because right when we were about to start recording, they got involved in a multi-team deal with the Bulls and the Pistons. And the full details on that are Jaden Ivey and Mike Conley to the Bulls, Kevin Huerter, Dario Saric to the Pistons, and the Wolves also traded, I believe it was a first-round protected pick swap. So essentially, you just traded Conley and the Wolves didn't get anything in return. No picks, no players. And my question is, why are you freeing up $10 million? That is the question. Are you going for James Harden? Are you going for Giannis maybe? Where do you think the Timberwolves stand right now in terms of like why do you think they freed up $10 million? Do you think they're targeting a specific player, or do you think it's just an overall cap flexibility move?
Well, I guess for Minnesota, I think it would be more luxury tax. I mean, I guess same thing, but trying to clear the tax bill a little bit. Now they are a first apron team, which does open up a lot of stuff for them, and the flexibility on the trade market entering the deadline. Now that they traded Mike Conley, I don't know. It's interesting. I think now they at least have options to play with, because I think Milwaukee is also a first apron team, where if the Timberwolves were a second apron team still, regardless, it would just really handicap how much the Timberwolves, if they were to try to pull off a Giannis deal, how likely it would be for them to pull off a Giannis deal, because they would be really limited flexibility wise to make this out. Excuse me, in terms of what type of salary matching they would have to do to pull the deal off and stuff like that, or vice versa with Harden. I know for a fact the Clippers are at least a first apron team, if not a second apron team. The Clippers are okay. Oh no, the Clippers are hard capped at the first apron. So if they wanted to try to pull off a James Harden deal, again, the Timberwolves kind of dropping down, making sure they have room in the first apron. Does a lot for them flexibility wise. Even if, and I doubt this is the case, I do think the Timberwolves are going to make some form of move. Otherwise, I just don't think you salary dump Mike Conley for essentially no reason. And then they traded a protected swap, whatever that means. And really, I guess because I just don't have the details on the swap in front of us right now, I'm sure it will make more sense if we had it in front of us. But I do think the Timberwolves are priming themselves to at least be a player on the market and get another move. They pretty desperately need a point guard. So if it's not Giannis, Minnesota really looks like the destination of, hey, let's go get James Harden and give Ant easily the best table setter he's ever played with. It's not close. Yeah. The best table setter he's ever played with, who's still a pull-up, pick-and-roll three-point shooting threat. And then, again, very similar to how you kind of described, the Luka Kyrie stuff that we've talked about a lot on the channel. The paired guard actions where, okay, cool, it's a Harden Gobert screen, because I also agree it would very clearly have to be Julius Randle. Or I guess you could, salary-wise, get the money to work in it. It's Jaden McDaniels or like...
No. If you're getting Harden, you need Jaden McDaniels still.
Okay, Naz Reid and... There's ways to get there salary-wise without it being Julius, I suppose. Even though Julius is still probably the cleanest route. But it's a Harden and Rudy Gobert ball screen from the right side, Harden going to his left hand, and on the opposite slot, opposite wing area, it's Anthony Edwards, who's a 40% pull-up three-point shooting threat, who can now attack off the catch and more consistently make you pay from the middle of the floor. Obviously, we know Ant's ability as a slasher. I've really talked myself into the Harden and Minnesota fit, especially with keep it J-Mac, or do people call him J-Mac? I feel like I just made that up on the fly.
They used to. I haven't heard it in a long time.
Okay. But especially if you're able to keep Jaden McDaniels and either Naz Reid or obviously Rudy Gobert. I'm really intrigued by that fit for Minnesota and for Harden individually. And I don't know, them getting a true point guard that can set the table, that kind of makes me view Minnesota a little bit differently, and at least me personally, in terms of their ceiling come playoff time.
You know what else would intrigue me, and potentially this would make more sense for the Clippers angle, is what if we see a three-team thing where Harden goes to Cleveland, Garland actually goes to Minnesota, so Minnesota still gets their point guard, and they're maybe he fits the timeline a little bit better with Anthony Edwards, Naz Reid, and Jaden McDaniels. And then maybe the Clippers just try and recoup as many assets as they can instead of taking on Garland's contract and trying to build with him as a building block. That's another angle that I've kind of talked myself into. Again, it relies on Garland getting healthy and whatnot. But yeah, Minnesota desperately needs a point guard, and that's why when it said they were involved in a trade with the Bulls, my mind immediately went to, okay, they either got Iota Sunu or Kobe White. Like, those are two guys that would just be a great fit, obviously. I'm not too big on the Kobe White fit because that's another score-first guard, like still not that table setter you want next to Ant. But Iota Sunu was a guy that I definitely was thinking would be a great fit in Minnesota because he can defend, because he can pass, and all that good stuff. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what Minnesota does. In terms of the other teams involved in this trade, Jaden Ivey to the Bulls. Do you have any strong thoughts on that?
No, kind of a good buy low candidate. You know, obviously had a great season last year before breaking his leg. Come back this season, the Pistons have just been rolling and never really felt the need to kind of insert him back into the starting five. And Detroit knew they weren't going to pay him going into this summer. So, yeah, no strong feelings, but good buy low candidate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Ivey's got some interesting skills to him, right? Like, he's obviously a great slasher. He can get to the rim. The finishing leaves a little bit to be desired. He's obviously very, very turnover prone, so it's not someone that you can have handle the ball a ton and run a lot of action. But the three-point shooting's panned out a little bit. I think there's some defensive potential there. I do think there is an NBA player in Ivey. And I don't know if I don't know if he really has like an all-star type of ceiling, but definitely can be a quality player. And what better spot to exercise some of those skills than Chicago, who has all of that passing and ball movement and fast pace of play and creativity. I think Jaden Ivey in Chicago is a pretty good fit, even if it's not a needle mover. And it's a great place for him to grow his game and continue taking those steps forward. For the Pistons, Dario Saric to me just seems like filler. I don't know if he had to be thrown in to make the contracts work, but I doubt he gets any minutes. The big thing for the Pistons is Kevin Huerter, and Shams reported it as the Pistons add their much needed sharpshooter. I feel like I need to just like dispel a narrative here. Kevin Huerter hasn't been a shooter in 4 years. In the last 3 seasons, he shot 34% from 3 on 5 attempts a game, which is just like normal below average 3-point shooting. This season, he's shooting 31% from 3. 3 years ago, he shot 30% from 3. He just clearly isn't a shooter at this point. That's not his role on the court. Kevin Huerter at this point is more of an off-the-catch, on-the-move decision maker who's going to get inside the paint, and he's just a really good passer and finisher at the rim. That's what Kevin Huerter does. He's not a freak athlete, but he's just such a sharp decision maker, off-ball mover, and kind of connective offensive piece that he does add like gravity and he does space the floor through those types of things, but it's more so like his movement, not the shooting itself. This season, he's shooting 76% at the rim. And then that's on volume too, like about 4 shots a game. And then you also get like the passing and stuff, the good decision making, and the versatility and different types of actions he can run. Whether you want to put him in pick and roll, put him in off-screen situations, dribble handoffs. And I do think that can be a big boost for Detroit's bench unit that does like to go to some delay action and stuff when Cade's not on the court. So, and then of course you can put him next to Cade and you can go to these. He's also a decent defender. Like, I don't think Kevin Huerter's a bad defender by any means. Really active helper, pretty physical, fights. I do think Kevin Huerter to Detroit makes more sense for the rotation than Jaden Ivey, who kind of felt like a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, whether that was next to Cade or as a leader of the bench unit.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really have much to add about either side. I like Kevin Huerter though.
I was going to say, I went a little bit more in depth on the Detroit and Chicago side than I thought I would, so I'd be surprised if you had a lot to add there. Feels like we just need to mention that in the Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis deal, the Bulls got 2 seconds, so that's cool. You had some more depth to your draft capital. You had to release Javon Carter. I wonder if a team will go for Javon Carter. Like, he's obviously a very good defensive guard who's added a 3-point shot and can do a few things. So Javon Carter is an interesting, like, free agent target to me. The Kings in this deal picked up DeAndre Hunter, who has, I don't really know how to describe his game. I'm going to be completely honest with you. He can shoot. He can play off the catch. He's a good mid-range scorer. but he is the epitome of a role player who doesn't do any of the little things. And I just don't know if that is a winning player. He doesn't fight for loose balls. He's a very, very bad rebounder for his size. Like maybe the worst rebounder in the league relative to his size. Not a good decision maker or passer. Not a great defender. Like he can defend wings decently well as a man defender, but not active in rotations and things like that. Not a presence at the rim. Just kind of big out there and mostly just a one-dimensional offensive player. So I don't really know what the Kings were looking for with adding him. At first I was like, well, DeAndre Hunter's still pretty young, right? He's 28 years old. So I don't really know. Do you have any idea for why the Kings would want DeAndre Hunter, or do you think they were just trying to dump Schroeder and Keon Ellis to somebody?
I think it was just dumping Schroeder and Keon Ellis. I was very, very ecstatic as a Laker fan to find out that my Lakers did not trade for DeAndre Hunter, especially for Rui. And obviously, I'm not the biggest Rui Hachimura fan, but I was like, dude, this is such a big, like, insignificant to like just meh trade. Like, all right, we're just trading assets to do whatever. DeAndre Hunter is like, okay, like he does a couple things.
I like DeAndre Hunter, but the funniest thing ever is that I saw Lakers fans talking themselves into the idea of a 3-and-D wing. Like they were saying DeAndre Hunter is a 3-and-D wing. And then I saw somebody say that it's very Lakers coded to trade for, and they described it. It was written out. It's hard to say it. It was an underscore and underscore wing, basically saying there's no 3 or D. He's just a wing. And I was like, well, kind of. That has been DeAndre Hunter this season. That would be very Lakers coded. Speaking of the Lakers, not to hate on your boys too much, but we were talking about this a little bit off show. They're apparently dangling Gabe Vincent and Dalton Connect in the trade market, and nobody's biting on those two major assets. Is there anyone that you've seen and that's just like kind of a realistic target for the Lakers right now in terms of like, obviously they want wing and defensive depth around Luka Doncic. Is there anyone that you think is like legitimately gettable?
I mean, not really. Now, granted, a lot of the Lakers trades kind of come out of thin air. That's one thing I will say. Like, the guys that are heavily talked about for the Lakers, I feel like, over the past 4 or 5 years, they've never gone is always the random deals that happen. Like, really, very random. Nobody saw that coming. Even the Russell Westbrook 3-team trade, nobody, that kind of came out of thin air when they got Malik Beasley, Bando, and Aldila. Okay, that was the third one. Dang, what other trades?
The only one I can think of that felt expected was DeAndre Ayton. That was one that I was like, that's going to happen.
Yeah, and that was what, free agency?
Yeah, because he got bought out. That's what that was. It wasn't even a trade.
Yeah, it was bought out in free agency. We were all like, yeah, he's going to be a Laker. That's about it. Mark Williams.
Even Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart came out of nowhere.
Marcus Smart kind of came. I feel like we were all like, at least Laker fans, like cautiously optimistic. Like, hey, this could actually happen. Even though it did go through, the Mark Williams deal came out of thin air. Luke, obviously, I mean, biggest trade in NBA history.
No, that was expected.
Oh yeah, you were absolutely totally shopping for Luka. So on one hand, I thought that was an In-N-Out cup. I don't know why.
Chick-fil-A. We unfortunately do not have In-N-Out in Indiana.
In-N-Out is
free.
Which is why
Whataburger's better. Is that a hot take?
Yeah, is that a hot take? That's a hot take.
Whataburger is definitely better than In-N-Out.
Shake Shack is better than Whataburger. In-N-Out is better than Whataburger.
I've never had Shake Shack.
So better than Whataburger.
Whoa! Now you're just tweaking. Now you're just tweaking out.
Is there any other burger spots that I'm missing?
I will trade you a Five Guys for Whataburger and a first-round pick. That'll be my move of the trade deadline.
Five Guys? Wait, what am I getting? Whataburger in the first?
You're getting Five Guys. I'm getting Whataburger and a first-round pick.
Oh, well, no thanks.
You said Five Guys is better.
Yeah, but why am I don't want to trade a first.
I'll take a second then. I'll take 2 seconds.
I could just go get In-N-Out for free off the buyout market and call a spade a spade.
In-N-Out is literally like you have to pay In-N-Out a Supermax. Are you kidding me? In-N-Out is not affordable. You're over the second apron. You're over. You can't even get fries. You're over the second apron, bro.
I don't want In-N-Out fries, so that's perfectly okay.
No drink. You can't even get a drink. You just have a plain burger. You can't even get toppings. You have a burger. There's no cheese. It's a plain. It's a patty and 2 buns. That's what you're getting, bro. You're over the second apron. You're going into the luxury tax to maybe get some ketchup. That's it. That's all you got. That's all you can get, bro.
I'm the Rob Pelinka of fast food burger trade deadline deal.
You're gonna somehow pull the Luka trade out of your ass. You're gonna trade this burger with no toppings for a 5-star steak dinner with lobster and shrimp, and that's gonna be your move of the deadline. Where were we?
I'm gonna save myself 5 years of my job because I made that one deal. And granted, one deal is generational, but you have to build around the steak dinner. You gotta have some red wine with it. And now I'm drinking water.
Maybe like some mashed potatoes, some asparagus on the side. You gotta supplement. Like you gotta have those key 3-and-D role players sides, around the steak dinner.
Mac and cheese as your 7-foot rim protecting big.
Yeah, there you go. So, what are your thoughts on the NBA? Right. I got this thing. It's an NBA podcast. So before we move on from the Lakers, did you have? No. Well, I just kind of wanted to throw it out there because there's been like more reports coming out about the LeBron stuff. Do you think anything's going to happen, or do you think that's just smokescreen?
I don't even think that's smokescreen. I think it's just kind of leading to where I've already kind of thought, which is this is LeBron's last year in LA. Whether he retires or not, I don't see a path for LeBron's on the Lakers next year. I think they're both kind of at the crossroads like, hey, we're kind of good. And LeBron's like, yeah, I think I'm also kind of good on y'all. And, I think I think this is the last year. I think this is the last year.
So I think this could lead to some really interesting scenarios. Like if LeBron just leaves the Lakers in free agency. Because is he an unrestricted free agent this year?
LeBron? Yeah.
So if he just leaves, do you think he prioritizes money, or do you think he's going to start like trying to get those rings, those extra couple rings to get to 5 or 6? What do you think would be his priority?
Well, I think it would have to be winning, because if we're going for the money, then you just automatically shrink your own options. Like,
yeah, well, that's what I was wondering. What teams are willing to pay LeBron? It'd have to be a team that's like, we want to sell some tickets, right?
Yeah.
Like, but then would LeBron even want to just like go, like play meaningless basketball and sell some tickets? Like, if New Orleans is like, LeBron, we got $40 million for you, is he gonna be like, yeah, let's do it? I can't really see that. But like, I also don't know if I can see him just like taking a minimum and hopping on the OKC Thunder, for example.
Yeah. You kind of talking me in more to like this being LeBron's last year.
I don't think it is though. I think we talked about this I think last episode where you were like, he has said he doesn't want a retirement tour, but I just think like if he was retiring, I think that it would be out there.
I need a button. I need a red alert. All right. Breaking news per Shams Charania. The Chicago Bulls are trading center Nikola Vucevic and a second-round pick to the Boston Celtics for Anthony Simons and a second-round pick.
Wow. Okay, gut reaction, initial reaction. I like how this is the biggest trade we've ever had revealed on the show.
Nikola
Vooch for Anthony Simons. First reaction, Vooch is an amazing fit with the way Boston runs offense. I love that fit so much. And then my other reaction is that the Bulls finally traded Vooch. Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. Like, dude, I thought he was going to retire there. Like, at this point. You have any strong thoughts on that? I think I really like Vooch in Boston, man. With the way they set up a lot of delay action.
7,000 guards.
Spacing. Yeah, Chicago has so many guards. Can a contender please get Trey Jones, man? Trey Jones needs to be on a contender. That's who the Timberwolves need, is Trey Jones. Yeah, what are your thoughts on both sides of this trade? Besides, I mean, I think Chicago's pretty What? Did something else just happen?
This is a sense of, okay. Per Ramona Shelburne, the Charlotte Hornets could join the chase for Giannis.
Yes! Yes! I spoke it into existence. They were my number 2 destination, if you remember, for Giannis behind Phoenix. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Okay. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, back to the Celtics Bulls thing real quick. I think Anthony Simons is a cool young player. I don't even know how young he is. Is he like 25 years old, I believe?
Simons?
Yeah. How old is he?
27 maybe?
I was going to guess like 25, 26 maybe. Obviously he's an elite shooter, like one of the best shooters in the league. Can handle the ball, create. He was kind of like very much, this was his best defensive season. Not that he's a great defender or anything, but definitely more effort and more intensity on that side of the ball. For Chicago, I guess you're just continuing to try and coop as many assets as you can. Like Simons is definitely a hotter trade commodity than Vooch at this point. But yeah, then on the Boston side, you are clearly, to me, this is clearly banking on Jason Tatum getting back, no?
Yeah. Wait, this year or next year?
This year. Like you're now, Vooch kind of signifies that you're going to go for the push. Because what's your playoff rotation then? I would assume Vooch is the backup big, taking Luka Garza's spot. I would imagine they still start Neemias Queta. I guess we don't really know. But let's say your playoff rotation is Pritchard, White, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, Queta. And then off the bench, you've still got Hugo Gonzalez, Jordan Walsh, Vooch. You've got Sam Hauser. That's a squad, man. That's a squad.
You think they're bringing Vooch off the bench?
I think so. I think they really have something going on with Queta, and I do think Jaylen Brown, his game is clearly maximized with a rim running big. That's just like where he's at his best. When he's got a guy in the dunker, when he's got a lob threat, when he's got someone like that in the pick and roll. Although Vooch makes a lot of sense too, because you get that pick and pop stuff. He's obviously a huge screener. You get a post up mismatch option. Obviously a really good passer, but then of course there's defensive limitations that you don't get with Queta. So that's what'll be interesting. Yeah, Boston's got a really interesting thing going on. I think we can just ignore the LeBron stuff. I think those alerts coming out while we were talking about LeBron was like the universe telling us to back off and stop talking about it. One last thing I want to bring up is that Vit Krejci got traded to the Blazers. That's a team that very much lacked three-point shooting, and he, over the last 3 seasons, is attempting 7 3-point attempts per 36. I just said attempting 3-point attempts. Attempting 7 3-point shots per 36, and he's made 43% of them. Just clearly one of the best shooters in the league, and he's like 6'8", so you get this jumbo, really, really good shooter. He can also handle the ball and pass. So Vit Krejci to Portland, I really like that fit. And for Atlanta, you get Duop Reith and 2-second picks. I think they're just trying to stack up some more draft capital. And Krejci, I believe, is on a really, really favorable team-friendly contract. So that makes a lot of sense. Do you have any other thoughts on what's going on with the deadline or what can potentially happen? Like, are there any deals on your mind?
I keep scrolling through Twitter to make sure that like nothing else happens. That's how I was able to catch the Vucevic trade. But no, not right now. Okay. I think going back to Cleveland, I'm interested to see if they potentially trade Jared Allen at the deadline. That's kind of been thrown around and tossed around. I think we're getting to a point with the Giannis thing where there's so much smoke that I think somebody's going to pull the trigger and win the Giannis sweepstakes here at the deadline. I'm trying to think, man. Does Houston go and get them another guard here at the deadline to, try to help out their half-court offense and, not have every Kevin Durant bucket?
James Harden reunion? Potentially?
I think there's been something out. Maybe it's just a rumor that, like, Houston's kind of good on a Harden reunion right now.
Damn. That'd be awesome.
I could be wrong.
Harden and KD reuniting in Houston.
Wait, Sengun? Oh, wait, no. Harden's going to hate Sengun because he can't play finish.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd be seeing Harden and Amen Thompson pick and rolls. I'm not hating. I can't hate on that. Yeah, I don't really have anything else in my mind. I'm like scared to end this episode though, because I know as soon as we end it, more stuff's gonna happen. But at a certain point, we have to cut it off. Maybe we'll do a part 2 if something crazy happens. We really appreciate you guys listening to this episode. If you're on Spotify or Apple, of course, 5-star rating, very much appreciated. Of course, you don't have to though. Just that's just a little added bonus for us. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Make sure to follow us on social media. Sean's on Twitter at Sean_DAVI. He's on Instagram at Sean_Davis23. He's on YouTube at the Los Angeles Lakers Network or the Sports Headline Show. All of those links will be in the description, as well as mine, Tyler Britton, on all platforms. And then, of course, for my NBA content, Hoop Venue. Let us know down in the comments what you guys think is going to happen with this trade deadline, what you're most excited to see. And we will catch you guys next time, potentially with a part 2 in episode number 75.